Because if I'm the second most powerful man in this country, Trump is goddamn asleep at the wheel. I'm calling drone strikes on this nigga, man. Like, I'm calling extrajudicial killings on this dude. I don't give a fuck. Like, if someone is talking about my wife like this and I have the amount of power as this man, I'm sending SEAL Team 6 to whatever fucking suburb in Illinois that this nigga is in. And I'm taking bro out. And I'm saying that he had weapons of mass destruction or some shit like that. If you're a MAGA chud or just in general any citizen in the United States of America, how in the world does it feel to know that your vice president, your second most powerful person, not just in the fucking country, but on the planet, is a complete and utter cuck to a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, Mexican twink? I mean, like, calling him a twink is kind of pushing it at his age, but 27-year-old Nicholas Fuentes. How does it feel to know that your vice president is a complete and utter cuck to this man? Like, Nick Fuentes is a 27-year-old version, yet he has JD Vance posted up in a cuck chair in a Homewood Suites right now. Not like literally, but basically at this point, it's like pretty sad. I've never actually seen something like this, man. And it's honestly kind of crazy. You know, I don't have really any skin in the game. I'm a progressive person, you know, obviously. I'm not no Myron Gaines. I'm not no black white supremacist. I read books, nigga. I read shit. I actually go to museums. I like art and shit like that. But that's besides the point. You can still comment on what's going on the right, because Nicholas Fuentes, he's not just like some obscure figure that's just like hidden in a basement. He's now a mainstream political operative that actually has to have the vice president of the United States responding to him. And his movement is getting so big and normalized that this neo-Nazi behavior is becoming a real problem, not just for people of color like me, but for people on the actual right that are, you know, I mean, a lot of them are Nazis, but anyone that's actually like pro-Israel should really just be really afraid, because it seems that Nick Fuentes is commanding such amounts of actual power right now with the youth, and it's kind of actually scary, and it's getting to the point where it's affecting JD Vance. You know, JD Vance has been this whole time fielding all types of criticism and hatred for his whole wife, Usha Vance, who is, you know, of Indian descent. And if it were any other party, it obviously wouldn't make sense, but it's kind of hypocritical because of the whole fact that JD Vance is out here preaching about white identity and stuff like that, and how white people shouldn't be afraid to be white, just for this kid, Nicholas Fuentes, to basically go crazy on him on Rumble and basically diss his whole family, for JD Vance to like really not really respond in any sort of way or fashion that really gives you any confidence that this dude has any type of backbone. So we're going to get into it actually, man, because we got to actually explain all this shit to the jump, because it's honestly pretty fascinating to see how everything goes down. But before we do, man, like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. Really don't give a fuck what you do with this video. Just have some type of reaction. So just to give you a little breakdown, JD Vance, like I said, has an Indian wife, yet he has to play into this whole MAGA scenario where he's like this macho chud white dude who preaches about white identity and stuff like that.
In the United States of America, you don't have to apologize for being white anymore.
While he has mixed race kids and an Indian wife. And I'm not even understanding, like, if you're Usha Vance right now, like, has anyone even gotten her opinion? Because what are you supposed to do when your husband basically is preaching like super, like pretty much like replacement theory type shit to the greater masses, and you're just like the brown person there? You're like Vivek Ramaswamy, like posted up in a sea of white supremacy, in a sea of white nationalism. You're posted up and you're basically a tokenized figure within this movement, and you can't even say nothing about it. You can't even, like, when they try to speak out against it, it ends up going terribly. Like, look at what happened to Ben Shapiro. He said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be anti-Semitic. And then everyone at that America Fest or whatever was pretty much just like, nah, shut the fuck up. We're going to do whatever. We're not going to silence any voices. AKA, we're going to allow the white supremacists like Nick Fuentes and his groypers to basically say whatever they want. So she is basically stuck in this predicament with him. Then you get JD Vance. And he basically finally, after, months of taunts and craziness and people dissing his wife and his wife's heritage and her being Indian, there's just an influx of anti-Indian and just like hatred coming from the right, especially the Groyper movement. He has decided to respond specifically to Nicholas Fuentes in a written sort of interview with this publishing group called Unheard. And I have never really heard of them either. They're unheard as fuck. But pretty much he basically, in the actual interview, we could go into it right now, but he has a few choice words for Nicholas Fuentes, man. It's a long-ass interview with Soram Amari. And honestly, just the fact that the nigga's name is that, I'm assuming that Nick Fuentes probably would be mad at that because bro is mad at anyone that isn't basically a corn-fed American white boy. And in the interview, it starts with, JD Vance has for months faced mounting pressure to censor Nicholas J. Fuentes and his army of voicelessly racist and anti-Semitic supporters known as Groypers. Honestly, the most nasty name that I've ever could think of. It sounds like some shit that be in between your toes, bro. It's honestly weird. But continuing. Speaking exclusively to Unheard at the vice president's residence on Friday, he doesn't mince his words. Let me be clear. Anyone who attacks my wife, whether their name is Jen Psaki, the former Biden press secretary, which I don't really know what she said. I'm guessing it was somewhere along the lines of like, yo, like, get your mans type shit or something like that, for like, why are you letting this people talk about your wife like that? Or Nick Fuentes can eat shit. That's my official policy as the vice president of the United States. Anti-Semitism and all forms of ethnic hatred, he says, have no place in the conservative movement. Whether you're attacking somebody because they're white or because they're black or because they're Jewish, I think it's disgusting. If that were the end of it, Vance would be a typical politician of an earlier age, and we likely wouldn't be sitting down for an interview in his library at the Naval Observatory in Washington. And the reason why this shit continues is because JD Vance, for some reason, is trying to play both sides. Like I said before, bro, he's trying to play this typical politician side where you gotta like disavow all this racism and hatred and stuff like that. But he's still trying to preach this white nationalist ideology when it comes to the masses because they realize that they need that. So in other words, he is deathly afraid of the Groypers and Nick Fuentes because, yeah, Nick Fuentes might never actually hold office or anything like that. God forbid, because we would all be cooked. But that ideology is becoming super strong and it's going to become a driving force in the MAGA movement, bro. It's something that cannot be ignored at this point. This dude has been getting platformed for mad long now. So the fact that we even are watching this interview with him talking about it is crazy. So Vance isn't typical. About to take off for Christmas vacation, America's first millennial Veep is dressed in a crisp button-down and fleece vest with dark denim. His getup strikes a sharp contrast with his old-timey surroundings. Lined with leather-bound books by and about Vice President, his own memoir, Hillbilly Elegy, is among the newer editions. A medieval-style painted crucifix stands on the shelves. More to the point, Vance is acutely sensitive to subterranean political and cultural shifts, which until recently only registered on the seismometer known as the internet, but which is starting to remake the world above ground. Fuentes, who called the second lady Usha Vance, I'm not even going to say that word because it's racist, a J word, and labeled vice president a race traitor for marrying her, is but one jagged spike on the seismic wave. And to Vance, not even especially pronounced one, says Vance. I think that Nick Fuentes, his influence within Donald Trump's administration and within a whole host of institutions on the right is vastly overstated, and frankly, is overstated by people who want to avoid having a foreign policy conversation about America's relationship with Israel. That is, the Hitler-praising Groyper King functions as a useful foil for pro-Israel hardliners in the right's raucous internal debate over America's alliance with the Jewish state. He's basically becoming really big recently because of the fact that he is anti-Israel, or was originally anti-Israel, not for the right reasons, not for the reasons that I am. Like, I completely disavow everything that Nick Fuentes says, obviously, because like I said before, I do not fuck with that Nazi shit or none of that shit. But he basically blew up on the internet for being one of the first people to be, white and actually being anti-Israel. Before October 7th and everything after that, if you said you didn't even like Israel, or if you had even an opinion on Israel, people would think you're a fucking terrorist. They would probably like call Homeland Security or you or some shit like that. Or you would just be called an anti-Semite, lose your job, and everything would be down bad. But then basically everyone saw what was happening with everything that was with October 7th and everything that followed, with the Palestinian genocide and everything like that. And pretty much, it was a wrap. Like, people hated Israel, and a lot of people hated Israel. And then people like the ADL, just in general, were calling anyone that didn't like Israel. And a lot of politicians were saying that anyone that didn't like Israel was anti-Semitic, and they were conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism, which people were either going to be like, no, you can be not anti-Semitic and still be an anti-Zionist, or people were just like not even reading into it, and they were like, fuck yeah, I guess I'm anti-Semitic. And they were seeing Nick Fuentes online and clips of him basically coming out. Gotta admit, bro, like, this dude is like the sassiest neo-Nazi that I have ever seen. Like, every single time that I see bro talking, it's always like mad sassy, bro. And it just comes off that you haven't had sex or anything in 27 years. But I think he's lying about that. I honestly, like, I don't want to out him or anything like that, but there's rumors that he's like gay or something like that. And, I would say live your truth, but obviously he can't live his truth because he is a neo-Nazi pretty much, and is a Christian nationalist and is totally against that type of stuff. And needless to say, though, he hates immigrants, black people like me, and Jews too. He's pretty much everything. Like, bro, I don't know how you go outside and literally live if you just hate everything like this. But this is his response. His response is honestly crazy, bro. Like, it's so bad that as the second most powerful person in the world, you have to do something about this. He should have said something way more than just say eat shit. He just knows that he can't do anything about this, which is like crazy. As the second most powerful person in the world, like, think about it. You can't do anything about some dude in Illinois who is commanding an army of crash out white supremacists because you know that it will hurt you politically. But let's see what he has to say, man.
Now, first of all, I have to say, I really appreciate the invitation. It's very gracious. I've said a lot of negative things about JD Vance.
Off rip. That's crazy. Because he told him to eat shit. He said, I appreciate the invitation. So I'm pretty sure you know where it's going, man.
So for him to extend an invitation like that to me, to have dinner, a traditional Indian dinner with him and his family,
Bro, I don't know how you hating on Indian food like that. Like, that shit ain't fire. Like, what are you eating, bro? Are you out here eating just like slop, like goulash or some shit like that? Like potatoes and rice? Not even rice, because that might be too ethnic. Potatoes and burgers and shit, bro. Like, you don't eat any seasoning. Like, Indian food be bust down, bro. You look like you need some seasoning in your life, man. Maybe that's why you're so mad.
It actually moved me. It actually touched me a little bit. I said, I've been nothing but antagonistic to this guy, really unprovoked. I started the beef. And so for
it, completely, this is all unprovoked. Like, bro is just starting the beef just to be like edgy and pretty much just to be racist, I figured when JD Vance was basically nominated as like the vice president by Trump, that it would be a major issue with the right, because these dudes are racist. No matter how much they say that they're not, bro, these dudes are fucking racist. Not all of them, obviously. There's different degrees. I feel like racism is a spectrum. There's the people that are preaching racist ideology, but not full out dropping hard R's and like slurs. And then you got the people like Nick Fuentes who are preaching full out right ideology and dropping slurs. So, like, I mean, in my opinion, as a black person, I would rather know my enemy. And I would rather go up against Nick Fuentes because I know what you think of me before we even talk. And I'm not sitting here thinking that you're like, you're not like a wolf in sheep's clothing. You're not just out here pretending to be not racist and being racist. Like, you're full out racist. Like, you feel me? So
for him, in the spirit of the holiday, in the spirit of Christmas, for him to extend an invitation in public like that, to enjoy a traditional Indian dinner prepared by his wife with his family at the Naval Observatory, he's a better man than me. He's a better man than me. And I got to give him a lot of credit for that. Credit where it is due.
Did bro just throw up a C, bro? Is Nick Fuentes cripping right now, man? And honestly, like, it really makes me wonder, is Nick Fuentes, like, does he really believe this shit, bro? Does he believe, like, what he's preaching? Or, like, does he just get such an audience that he just has to keep going along with it, bro? I mean, like, he must obviously believe it because he's been debanked. He probably gets death threats on the regular. So, I mean, once you're this far into it, there's no going back. But
respectfully, I must decline. That's sort of the whole point. I don't want to eat shit. Kind of the whole point. We don't want them here because we don't want to eat shit. I know they do that in India.
Bruh, this is like the most racist shit that I have ever heard. And there's someone that doesn't leave their house that be living in a cockroach infested basement that be like, yo, based. Like, bro's based right now. Bro's spitting. Bro's based. Faceless ass IG. Thinking that this shit is like how the normal person should think. And the crazy thing is that this is becoming a mainstream thing in the Republican Party, which also kind of makes me think that this dude could be like, imagine if he's like really a progressive operator that's really set into the Republican Party just so like to cause division and basically drive them into the ground, because that's what it's pretty much doing. Or it's just turning this straight into birth of a nation, which also could actually be what's going on too. But
I know they literally eat cow shit. I know that they will scratch their ass and then prepare food and eat shit that way also.
Something about Nick Fuentes too doesn't really come across as like he's the most clean guy at all either. But like,
we don't want them here because we don't eat shit in America. We try to avoid eating shit as much as possible. It's why we wash our hands, So respectfully, I'm going to have to decline. Thank you, but no thank you. I will not be eating shit, but I wish you the best on your Christmas Eve dinner. I hope that goes well for you guys.
So, yeah, man, there's no doubt that is the most disrespectful, crazy, racist, xenophobic, just straight up exactly on par and on character for what you would think a neo-Nazi would actually say in that situation. And the fact that the right has to kowtow and basically ally themselves with people like that and come out here and be like, oh no, like, we can't police people's thoughts and what they have in their opinions and shit like that, bro. It just shows that you should be scared as a country, because this is the second most powerful man in this fucking country. And Vice President J.D. Vance is a lot better than me, because if I'm the second most powerful man in this country, Trump is goddamn asleep at the wheel. I'm calling drone strikes on this nigga, man. Like, I'm calling extrajudicial killings on this dude. I don't give a fuck. Like, if someone is talking about my wife like this and I have the amount of power as this man, I'm sending SEAL Team 6 to whatever fucking suburb in Illinois that this nigga is in. And I'm taking bro out. And I'm saying that he had weapons of mass destruction or some shit like that. Like, the fact that you have to sit there and just take it like a good little boy, JD Vance, that's crazy. And any like MAGA man, alpha male should be looking at that and be like, bruh, like, this is crazy. This is the second most powerful man in the world. But I guess it kind of shows that the vice president has no real power. I guess that's what they were saying about Kamala Harris and the genocide in Palestine and shit like that. And I guess it kind of makes sense that they have no power to really do shit, because all he can really do is just take it, bro. Like, that's crazy. Like, you can't do nothing. You can't we could really build up an army and attack people halfway across the fucking world, but you can't do shit when a little ass fucking Mexican white supremacist in Illinois is calling you out by name. You can't do shit but just tell him to eat shit, bro. Like, that's crazy. And that in itself is very frightening, bro. It shows that the Republican Party is at a crossroads right now, and it's going full on birth of a nation. And I mean, if you're a Nazi, then I guess this is your fucking heyday, man. Like, this is your moment. Y'all somewhere, man. Y'all finally out here platforming mainstream ideas to the point where the vice president has to actually, the fact that the vice president even has to respond in itself shows that his words carry weight. And there's a lot of actual power that's coming up against you. And they're trying to not fracture the coalition. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But as a progressive, as a leftist, man, I'm definitely happy that these dudes are fighting. And it exposes how much of a fucking pussy cuck piece of shit J.D. Vance actually is. Fuck all these people, but J.D. Vance especially. Because if he is not even willing to stand up for his wife, bro, what makes you think that he's going to stand up for this country? Especially when he apparently is running in 2028. If they even let him run, because Trump, even though he's literally asleep in meetings and asleep at the wheel, ultimately has the say-so and is the kingmaker and might even try to run for a goddamn third term, in which case we're fucked, man. But either way, we're in a rock and a hard place as Americans, and this shit is just crazy, man. But hey, let me know in the comments what y'all think about this shit. Real safe shit. You already know what the fuck is going on, man. We're fucked.